welcome to Two Rivers Tuesday. I'm Maggie here with John Teague. How are you?
I'm good. What's up, everybody?
As I was welcoming everyone, I momentarily forgot the name of this podcast, and thankfully it came back to me. But I was like, "What is this called again?" Here we are. Welcome everybody. All right, John. I have lots of questions for you.
Oh boy.
These are would you rather questions.
Yes. Okay.
All right. There are so many funny ones on the internet. So, would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Oh my gosh. Being able to talk to animals sounds so cool, but probably not super practical. So I'm going every language in the world.
Yes, same. Yeah. That would be awesome. Okay, this one really just made me feel sad imagining. Okay. Would you rather always feel hungry or always feel tired?
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that sad?
That is sad. And that's really hard, to always feel hungry. But I could still eat, right? But I would just always feel hungry.
I guess so.
I think I have learned how to live always tired. So I think maybe I'll go with that one.
That's great. I think I'm very unkind when I'm hungry, and I need to own that, but I think it's when I'm hungry. So I think I would go with tired.
Does this engage the heart? Should we dig deeper into that?
All right, last one. Would you rather have a knife when you need a spoon or a spoon when you need a knife?
What? Would you rather have a knife when you really need a spoon? I feel like this happens all the time. At home, get the jar out and it's the sour cream. And it's or I'm thinking about this right now, in my mind.
That nasty stuff that grows on the sour cream when you've put a dirty spoon in it. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I wasn't thinking that, but I was thinking just how sometimes jelly. Okay. If you're trying to get jelly or jam out of a jar, yes. Are you using a knife? Because it's you've been making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You spread the peanut butter with a knife, and you don't want to get another thing dirty. Maybe so you try to get the jelly out with the knife, but it just keeps flopping off of the knife. And that's it's maddening.
I do the thing where I put the knife in there and kind of give it a aggressive stir, the jelly an aggressive stir,
and then you just kind of pour it on,
and kind of can rake it out onto the peanut butter and jelly with the knife.
Yeah. I think I'm going. I don't really even know. Did we land on an answer with that?
I think it would be better to have a spoon when you need a knife, because if you were trying to eat soup, but all you had was a knife, that would be dangerous.
Soup. I didn't even think about that. I'm not a big soup fan. I can eat soup, but I don't get excited about soup.
Jake is the same way. I think that's a man thing.
I think it is.
You believe you're not going to get full. And I feel like men are terrified of not feeling full. What is that about men?
Would you rather? I'd rather be tired all the time
than
hungry.
God forbid we be hungry.
There's something that's primal in us like that.
Yes, you have to be full.
Yeah, but I do but chili now. I do like chili.
That is a different category.
Yeah. It's got meat in it.
Yes.
And veggies.
Makes you feel full.
And beans.
Yes. Okay, I have to do this one because I thought this one was great. Would you rather listen to an annoying laugh for a whole day or get tickled for 1 hour?
Listen to an annoying laugh all day or be tickled for an hour?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the last time I was tickled. I guess as an adult. It's kind of giving
Jesse was about to tickle you.
It's kind of giving me the creeps right now as I'm thinking about it. Yeah. So I think I'll just listen to the laugh for an hour.
Absolutely.
For all day.
Being tickled is the worst. It hurts.
Yes.
Okay, I could ask so many more of these. These are great, but we should probably segue to the sermon.
Okay.
So on Sunday you asked us some would you rather questions.
Yes.
And then ultimately that led us to the more serious question that kind of this psalm gets you thinking about, which is would you rather be in the Lord's house or be, I guess, in somewhere else that's great. In this psalm, he's just kind of saying, I would rather be in the house of God than anywhere else.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the background of this psalm. What type of psalm is this? Or what is the point of this psalm?
Yeah, Psalm 84 is what we were walking through, and it's sort of a pilgrimage psalm. It is... we're familiar with the songs of ascents, which I think start around 120. And those were there was a special little section of the Psalter that were songs that they would sing as they were going up to Jerusalem to worship. This would sort of fall into that, though it's not grouped in with them. This is a pilgrimage song, and it's about going to worship. It's about going to the house of the Lord to worship. And as we talked about on Sunday, we can think of our lives as sort of this pilgrimage toward God's presence, but then we can also think about just even every single week being sort of a pilgrimage, a journey toward the next time we get to gather with God's people to be in God's presence and worship him.
Yeah. You said on Sunday that this psalm is meant to stir delight for gathering and stir delight for worship. And I think I just encourage everybody to go read that psalm for yourselves once again, because it is just so beautiful, and just reading it stirs delight for worship and stirs delight for getting to gather together. And that's kind of what I want to spend some time doing today, is just kind of like stirring once again delight for getting to gather on Sundays and what is beautiful about it and what we enjoy about it. So let's talk, what are some things you enjoy about Sundays? What is beautiful about Sundays gathering and worshiping for you?
Well, we could probably just go back and forth. And so the first thing that comes into my mind is just because I sit on the front row every week, I have all the voices kind of washing over me. Like, they're behind me. I can't see people's faces, but I can hear their voices, especially those that sit nearest to us. And that's just beautiful, getting to hear people, their voice singing. I don't know. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is seeing like the multi-generational aspect to our church. Like, you in the lobby, you can have babies like being pushed around in strollers, and then you have like grandparents all at the same time, and just like the blending of different ages, different stages of life, different stories, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different races, like all of it coming together is so beautiful, because like the church is kind of the only place that happens, like, because all of those, we can come across all of those lines that would typically divide, but like Christ is what unites all of us, and that's what we're all there for. And that it's so beautiful to just see everyone melting together and just seeing the joy of like kids being held and kids being loved on, and brothers and sisters just like hugging each other. It's so sweet.
Yeah, kids are running around and they're running toward their like grandfather that's not their grandfather.
Yes.
You know, that's the that multi-generational thing. I love that. That's a great answer.
It's like, whose parents, like, who are the parents? Because the kids just like disperse, and they feel so safe and loved and known by like everyone there. It's like you almost couldn't tell like which one do you belong to, and I love that. Yeah.
Another fun thing is watching all of the Room 4 kids like take off out of worship to go like run to the back to meet their teachers, and they're jumping up and high-fiving them and stuff like that as they're heading out after worship. That's fun. I also love meet and greet, how our church just like explodes because we love each other so much, and we're such a relational community that like 2-minute meet and greet, we just like love it. Or most people do. I know that there's probably some people who are like, when is this going to be over? They're dying. Yes, they're dying.
But for the most part, we love that part, and it's so sweet to meet new people and catch up and stuff like that. How does it feel as the pastor to have to like put that to an end every week?
Oh, you know, I sort of feel bad. I feel bad that I'm like interrupting all these conversations, but because I'm an introvert, I have a lot of empathy for those who are so ready for that time to be over. You're rescuing them. So yes. So it's mixed emotion, but I actually love standing there watching it happen. And there probably are some people too, just that are not just introverts, but they're dutiful, and they're like looking at pastor and like, looks like pastor's ready to start. And so we should not be talking. And then everybody else is like oblivious to the fact that I'm standing there waiting. You know, the lights are on, the music's off, they're still talking. Oh yeah. I love when you're starting your sermon and they're still talking. We'll be done in a minute. It's great. You know what? We'll just go out in the lobby. We'll just take this outside. Oh man. On Sunday, a couple of times throughout your sermon, you kind of helped us see that serving in kids and like what goes on back there is also part of this delight and joy. And I loved how you just helped us reimagine how important that is. And I was thinking,
about how all of the volunteers in kids ministry who serve back there are helping shape the hearts of our children and helping like form those paths in their hearts to Zion.
Yes.
So in this psalm, I think like for me, the most beautiful line in this psalm is, you have it right there. Read it for us about the highways to Zion.
It's verse 5. It says, "Blessed are those whose strength is in you, in whose heart are the highways to Zion."
And so I'm just picturing what is happening in kids ministry is we're helping form those highways in their hearts to Zion.
Yes.
And so that is just adds so much more significance to what is going on back there. When you think of your role back there is like shaping their heart to love and delight in gathering with their church family.
Yeah.
And I think of my girls, Evelyn in particular is just like our happiest child right now. She's just always so happy, and every single day when I get her out of her crib, whether it be from nap or nighttime, the very first question she asks every time, "We go into church?" That's what she says every single time. "We go into church?" And most days I'm like, "No, not today." But on Sunday I get to be like, "Yes, we're going to church today." And she goes, "Yay!"
I love that.
But that she's excited to go to church in part because of who she knows she's going to see and how she knows she's going to be loved on in kids ministry.
Yeah.
And so that's just so beautiful to think about how her heart is being formed, and we get to be part of making church feel that way for the kids represented in our church family.
Yeah. So when our girls were little, one of the things that they always asked us, as maybe it was Saturday, as they knew Sunday was the next day, we're going to church tomorrow, they would ask, "Who's our teacher going to be?" And we would tell them whoever, it was that we knew was on the schedule. Back in the early days of the church, like we knew, I think Katie and I were very much a part of putting all that schedule together. And so we knew who was going to be their teacher, and we tell them, they'd be like, "Yes," no matter who it was. But they knew their teachers. They knew them by name. They knew their teachers knew them. And that was powerful. And that, just to your point, is going a long way toward creating that path, for them. You think about the Psalm and the highways to Zion being in our hearts. But as you think about a real specific pathway, there were probably all kinds of well-worn paths through the wilderness, through the countryside to get to Jerusalem, where they became roads because people traveled on them over and over and over again. And it became the well-worn path that they knew they could take to get where they were wanting to go, which in this case was to worship God. And so you just think about that, like the more we practice this as a family in our homes, like getting our kids up, getting them ready, taking them to church as often as we can, that's creating that pathway for them.
Yeah. And that's a path that as adults, maybe even if they lose their way at some point, like the prayer is like, okay, you as a parent can know, like, I know that path is in their heart. Yes. I know we formed that as a family, and you're just praying, Lord, like, let them find their way back home again, or like find that path again. And so that's so beautiful to think about the paths that we can kind of give our children, not just to church, but also to God. So like you talked about, it's kind of like blessed are those who know their way to God. Yes. And so I think that's another thing we can do for our children is like show them all throughout our days, this is how we can go to God. In our family, we have this book called well, of course I'm not going to remember it right now. Any place, any prayer, any time. And the concept of the book is just like, you can pray whenever, wherever, about anything. Yes. And so we try to use that phrase in our house of like any place, any prayer, any time, we can pray about anything. And so that to me is helping them like visualize and form their way to God. And so we can pray in the car, we can pray at meals, we can pray at bedtime. Like you can pray anytime. I love that. And so that helps them and me know the way to God. Because I think something I have been learning is like the way I'm going to be formed and the way I'm going to change in some of these like sins that are like deeply in my heart that I'm like, why can't I like find freedom from this? I think part of it is like those default moments in my mind where it's like, where does your mind go when it wanders? When you're driving and you kind of check out, or when you're waiting in line, or when you're trying to fall asleep, or you're in the shower. Like all these, we have lots of moments to use, and we can let our brains just like go to the default thing, or we can get on our phone, or we can kind of take those moment captives and find our way back home and go to God in those moments. And so I'm trying to take those moments captive and let, like, all throughout my day, like hundreds of moments are opportunities to like abide and go back to God and like recenter yourself and allow him to like change you and flow through you. So that's just kind of the mental picture I was getting of like, I want all throughout my day to like be going back to God, and that be where my mind just like reverts back to naturally. And that's hard at first. It takes discipline at first to like take those thoughts captive and go there and to do that. But I think over time you become the type of person where you're not even thinking about it anymore. You're just, your mind is always going to live there.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's just a bit of that pray without ceasing kind of idea.
Yeah. Because it's hard to imagine how you actually do that. But then, if you picture like, okay, in all of those little moments that we have, using those to pray. We also talked about on Sunday mornings kind of how we can anticipate meeting with God and how we can participate in what he's doing. And so one thing that I think helps me enjoy Sundays is knowing I have a role to play. And this is something we talk about in core class, which is coming up in April. So to all the members, if you've taken Discover and become a member, we want you to come to core class. This class helps you kind of discover your gifts and discover what role you can play in our church family, whether that be on a Sunday morning or in life group. Because I think a lot of times we think like, okay, I'm not preaching the sermon or like playing the guitar, so what do I do on Sunday? But everyone has a role to play, whether you're like on the volunteer schedule or not. And core class kind of helps tease that out, but everyone gets to participate on Sunday morning. So let's talk a little bit through a Sunday and talk about what it looks like to fully engage in each of the elements. So let's take worship through song, for instance. How can someone kind of lean into more fully participating in that aspect of Sunday?
Gosh, we ought to have Jesse on for this. He's in the room. He's nodding his head. He's off camera. I think the most obvious answer is like to sing along, even if you're not a great singer, to participate in that, to engage in that is important. I mean, we see that. I mean, singing is an important part of worship all throughout the scriptures, and it never really qualifies whether it's like, hey, if you're good at it, you should sing. And if not, you can just stand there. I've used the phrase "stand there and take it" before. I know not everyone is musical in that sense or enjoys singing, but you can participate by joining in with your voice, or maybe even with your physical posture, your hands, lifting them up when the song says, "So to you I lift up my hands," or getting on your knees when it says we're on our knees, because we're desperate for you. So trying to engage in what the musical worship is helping us do, I think is important.
Yeah. And for me, something I'm trying to do better at is, depending on when you get there and which service you go to and how social you are, you can accidentally be so social that you miss the whole first song.
Yes.
And so for me, I'm like, I look forward and need to worship and want to worship through song. And so when I like hear that song starting, I'm trying to do better about like, okay, get in there so I can participate. I'm like kind of guilty of continuing to chit chat and like, again, our church family is so social and relational and we love that. But what if like the second we heard that like drum hit, we were like, oh, worship is starting. I got to get in there. I want to participate. I'm eager to participate. So that's something I've been thinking through. What about when it comes to like hearing the word preached? How can someone lean into more fully participating in that element?
Yeah. Well, I think bring in a Bible that you can open up and read. And I know sometimes that's hard. The lighting in certain places in the room's difficult to maybe see your Bible. But even pulling that up on your phone, thinking about taking notes, whether that be on your phone on a note or maybe writing them down on the back of the bulletin that you got when you walked in. I think trying to engage your mind there is one way to participate in the opening of God's Word. Another one is just, I love it when people sort of cheer me down the field.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hey, your pastor needs affirmation. I need to know, is this landing out there at all? And so you might not think much of it, but when someone says yeah or amen, like that is like music to my ears, like, okay, not like, I mean, it's just something's making sense, and that's a way to participate. That may not be what you're asking for.
No, that's helpful. Can you see when people are nodding?
I can.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I'm a big nodder. I'm like, the whole time I'm just like, yes.
Or nodding off. I see that too. Like the nod that goes down but never comes up, or maybe comes up really quickly, like jerk.
Oops.
Yes. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I see that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are good answers. What about meet and greet?
Meet and greet. Yeah. That's an opportunity to participate in the family aspect of connecting with one another and meeting new people and making them feel welcome into our home, you know? And so I know that can be a challenge, and that's not everybody's like first primary wiring, perhaps, but just know that there's someone perhaps that's new that doesn't know anyone and doesn't know who to go and talk to, and they may not be ready to go and introduce themselves to somebody. You get to be that.
Yes.
Like, so participating in that meet and greet time is huge.
Yes. Yeah. This is something we talk about in Discover, but like when someone comes to our church, we can pretty much guarantee they're going to feel welcome and loved. Like we, by God's grace, are a very welcoming and loving church family. And so I love that, like, time and time again, we're constantly hearing, like, I came to this church and I felt welcomed, and we praise God for, like, doing that. And so people receive that welcome, and then we encourage our members to turn now and, like, give that same experience to new people. And I think it can feel like, oh, like, I don't know if I'm like have been around long enough, or am like enough of a leader to like welcome people in that way, or like I'm not on the greeting team, or whatever like lies may come up. Like if you're part of our church family, like you own it, and you go and give that experience of being welcomed and being loved to anyone you see. And that is how this culture that God has given us will continue. Like if we don't turn and keep giving it, it will die off eventually. But we got to like keep that alive in our church family.
Yeah, and I think you do a good job from time to time reminding us sort of the gospel doctrine here, which is that because Jesus died for us, we have peace with God and we have peace with one another. And so this is practicing that peace with one another, like going and grabbing someone and giving them a hug and catching up with them and saying it's good to see you, or just introducing yourself, because we have peace now. That hostility has been broken down.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think like old timey churches call that time past the peace for that reason. All right, what about communion?
What about it?
How can we participate? So I know we take communion every week.
Yes.
And so the threat is that could become ritualistic, or we go through the motions. So how do you, John, make sure that doesn't happen in your heart? How do you make sure you're like fully engaging each week?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. And what I have been doing lately is not rushing to take it, and to just sit there and hold it long enough to whisper a prayer that reminds me that what I'm holding, like Jesus did this for me. Like this wasn't some general thing and I kind of got lumped in, doesn't even know my name. I'm a social security number in a big database somewhere, you know? He knows my name. He died for me. That blows my mind. But just trying to remember that in that moment before I just rush to take it and be very mechanical about it, but just to take my time. And one of the things that I would just want to free everybody up in is that I said this on Sunday, kind of like, what are the rules here? I think I said it in one of the services. The rule is to express your worship however the Lord's leading you to. Just be obedient to that. And when it comes to communion, don't rush through it. Take your time. Let the Lord guide you in that. And don't worry if Jesse and the worship team, they're already singing. That's okay. You can stay seated while you continue to reflect on this, and then stand up when you're ready to worship in response to having taken communion. You know, so I think it's just making that personal and not just kind of like flowing through the motions of it.
Yeah, I think that's good. One thing I've been doing that has helped it kind of come to life in a new way for me is I think sometimes it's almost easier to believe the truth for other people more than it is for yourself. And so I have been enjoying watching my church family, my brothers and sisters, come to the table, and I can like so clearly see that truth for them. And I love seeing it for them. Like I love that I get to watch like all of them have been washed clean, and all of them have been adopted into God's family, and like I get to watch them participate in the table. And then when I take it, I'm like, oh, and me too. Like I'm part of that too. And good. It just brings me joy for them and for myself. And so it's just beautiful to like watch how the Lord is working and what he has done that we get to share in that table together.
That's good.
Two more things I want to talk about that you said on Sunday is you were being honest and vulnerable about like a hard week that you had, and how the temptation was you kind of feel like, well, I don't want to go to life group then. Yeah. And I think how often do we feel like it's been a long weekend, or like I'm tired, or time change, or it's raining, or it's cold outside, or like we have had a crazy schedule, so we won't do this good thing. Yes. And I feel like that is such a temptation at like every level when we are just like running on empty. The very thing that's going to give us life is often what's the first to go. Yeah. And so I think it's just helpful to like see that and name that in ourselves. Yes. That like that I know that's going to be my tendency is to actually isolate from the things I need most. And so therefore we have to kind of decide ahead of time, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Like I'm going to pre-decide that I will go to life group even when I'm tired. Yeah. I will go on Sundays even when the kids are giving me all the things and don't want to go and are going kicking and screaming. Like we're going to go. Yes. And I will get on that highway to God and spend time with him, even when it's the last thing I feel like doing. Yes. Just deciding that, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah, amen. Preach, sister. And
then another thing you said that I loved was that these journeys and these pilgrimages that people would take were too dangerous to do alone. And I think that is just like the clearest picture of what God has designed our lives to be. Like this pilgrimage that we're on, even just like on this earth and in this life, is too dangerous to do alone. And so like all of us are like passing through this life onto the one to come, where we will like be in Zion, and this is too dangerous to do alone. And so that's the encouragement to like enjoy your community, fellowship on Sundays, go to your life group, like lean into those relationships, encourage them, because you literally cannot do this without them.
That's right. Yeah, that's the phrase I was thinking of. Lean into that. And when you are going through the valley of Baca, lean into those people around you, borrow their faith, when you don't feel like you have it. That's part of what encouragement is. It's lending courage to someone else, and so lean into that. And then when you're not in that dry place, but the Lord has put something on your heart for someone else, like lean into that. Yes, someone needs you to give them that encouragement, to give them that word, to cheer them up, to make them laugh or smile, or to come alongside and put an arm around them. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. All right, in closing, as you turn this podcast off, my encouragement to you is to get on that well-worn path to Zion. Make your way to God and just spend a moment in his presence, delighting in who he is and how he loves you. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
See ya.